In 1977, Exxon's own senior scientists stood in front of company management and told them with data in hand that burning fossil fuels was already warming the planet and that the damage would be catastrophic. Exxon had the proof. They paid for it. They buried it. And for the next 4 decades, while government stalled and the public argued, the corporation that already had the answer was funding the doubt. So why has no one ever told you this? Exxon was the gold standard of American corporate reputation. Careful, scientific, responsible. They ran advertisements featuring their own researchers in lab coats. They sponsored science education programs. They published op-eds about their commitment to honest data and long-term thinking. For most of the 20th century, Exxon was the company people trusted to get it right because they had the resources and the talent to understand things most of us couldn't. That was the reputation. And they spent serious money protecting it. In July 1977, a scientist named James Black, one of Exxon's own senior researchers, delivered a formal presentation to the company's management committee. His message was direct. Carbon dioxide from burning oil and gas was accumulating in the atmosphere, trapping heat, and would cause measurable, irreversible warming. He had the models. He had the numbers. Management listened. Then Exxon did something that would define the next half-century of climate policy. They funded their own internal research program, in secret, between 1978 and 1982. They spent roughly $1 million a year. Their scientists ran climate models that, by every independent standard applied later, were accurate. In 1982, those models produced an internal memo projecting global temperatures would rise by 3 degrees Celsius by 2100 if fossil fuel use continued unchanged. 3 degrees. That is the exact number climate scientists today are telling governments represent civilizational risk. Exxon had it quietly in 1982, and they told no one outside the company. By the late 1980s, the research program was wound down. The scientists were reassigned. The memos were reclassified, and simultaneously a different kind of project began. In 1989, Exxon was a founding member of the Global Climate Coalition, a lobbying organization built on a single premise: convince the public that climate science was contested, uncertain, still being debated. It wasn't. Exxon's own labs had resolved the debate a decade earlier, but that was the internal truth. The external strategy was confusion. $30 million distributed to think tanks and advocacy groups bought exactly that. Not denial, doubt, because doubt is enough. Doubt stalls legislation. Doubt delays treaties. Doubt is cheap and extraordinarily effective. Here's the part they really didn't want out. In 2015, a team of investigative journalists at Inside Climate News obtained internal Exxon documents. What those documents showed was not just that Exxon knew, it showed exactly how well they knew. Their scientists' internal temperature projections tracked almost perfectly against what we actually observe in the atmosphere today. Their CO2 concentration curves, accurate. Their warming timeline, accurate. These were not rough sketches. These were detailed, peer-quality research outputs produced by salaried employees using company resources, then quietly buried. The language in the external campaign was stunning. A 1998 internal strategy document, later confirmed by Columbia University researchers, described Exxon's communication goal as repositioning global warming as theory, not fact. Not refuting it, repositioning it. That is a marketing term, not a scientific one, because the science to them was never the question. The question was how to manage the public's understanding of it. The answer cost $31 million and involved 44 separate organizations working simultaneously to seed uncertainty into the American conversation about climate. And it worked. For decades, no Exxon executive was ever charged with a crime. Several state attorneys general opened investigations. New York's investigation went to trial in 2019. The judge ruled that Exxon had not defrauded investors. A narrow verdict on a narrow charge that had nothing to do with what they actually knew, or when they knew it, or what they deliberately chose to do with the knowledge. The executives who ran the suppression strategy collected their salaries, earned their bonuses, and retired with their pensions intact. ExxonMobil's most profitable year in its history was 2022, the same year extreme heat broke records on 3 continents, wildfires burned across the hemisphere, and flooding displaced millions. $56 billion in a single year. The Global Climate Coalition had already disbanded in 2002, quietly once its work was largely done. No press conference, no reckoning. What makes this different from a standard corporate cover-up is the timeline. Exxon didn't make a mistake and hide it. They ran the science. They confirmed the risk. They made a deliberate choice. And then they spent 40 years ensuring that choice would never cost them anything. The question that doesn't have a clean answer, the one that should sit with you long after this video ends, is simple. If a company can know the worst, fund the denial, watch every single projection come true in real time, and face zero criminal accountability for any of it, what exactly would have to happen for the system to call it what it actually was? They knew. They buried it. The planet warmed anyway. And the men who made that call are still out there, living well.